Nuclear reactors across the country. That's the federal opposition's plan outlined by leader Peter Dutton today to deliver more affordable and reliable energy. 7 sites have been earmarked for nuclear power if the coalition wins the next election, including Liddell and Mount Piper in New South Wales. All are the sites of existing or recently retired coal-fired power plants connected into the grid with poles and wires. The coalition claims nuclear is the only way to ensure Australia meets its commitment for net zero carbon emissions by 2050, without placing the burden on household and business budgets. Here's political reporter Matthew Doran.
The opening salvo in a new nuclear war.
It's time for an adult conversation about keeping the lights on and pushing power prices down.
And to lead our nation away from this madness of an all-renewables approach.
7 nuclear plants to be built across the country under a future coalition government. Reactor models currently in use overseas, placed at the sites of existing or recently retired coal plants. The first 2 online by 2037 at the latest, the rest by the mid-2040s.
Now that would be, in and of itself, the fastest nuclear rollout in the world.
Can we possibly do this starting from scratch in the timescale available? That seems to be very difficult indeed.
It'll come with a hefty price tag, albeit one not yet public.
We'll deal with the cost in the next stage of our policy announcements.
I mean, if the Labor Party tried this from opposition, we would have been torn apart.
Peter Dutton insistent nuclear is the answer to the nation's power pressures.
When we talk to pensioners who this winter, under this government, will either heat or eat, but not both. That is not acceptable in our country.
So this is a fantasy layered on a pipe dream.
The plants would be Commonwealth owned, with Peter Dutton promising to compulsorily acquire sites if his government can't strike a deal with owners. Reaction to the reactors, mixed.
Why should we spoil our rural areas to suffice the city's liquors?
We need this town to keep growing and survive. We don't want all our workers taken away.
Nuclear power, everything is safe until there's an accident.
Premier's less than thrilled with the proposal.
In the Australian context, it will make power more expensive. So why on earth would we pursue it?
Nuclear energy is toxic, it's risky, it's more expensive.
We're not going to remove the nuclear prohibition on energy production in New South Wales, so I don't know how they're going to get around it.
My kids, your kids, will need to manage dangerous radioactive nuclear waste forever.
The opposition leader believing winning over the states isn't an insurmountable challenge.
I think somebody famously said I wouldn't stand between a premier and a bucket of money.
All setting the scene for the run to the next election.
The Australian people now have a very clear choice.
I'm very happy for the election to be a referendum on energy, on nuclear.
This is a major policy with some major holes, not least how much it will all cost. Peter Dutton says Australia is decades behind other developed nations in using nuclear power, but trying to catch up with the rest of the pack now will likely be very expensive. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Canberra.
Peter Dutton is staking the coalition's fortunes on this policy. Here's the ABC's political lead, David Spears.
This is Peter Dutton's biggest gamble, and it's being put to the people with little detail so far. Most notably, there's no price tag yet, nor any modelling to support the claim power bills would be cheaper. We do now know the 7 sites where the coalition wants to build nuclear plants, and late today the Nationals leader confirmed locals won't be able to stand in the way, even if they don't want a reactor. The states are opposed, the Senate would have to lift the moratorium, and the CSIRO warns nuclear power would cost twice as much as renewables. Peter Dutton is betting voters will ignore all of that. He's tapping into the frustration over power bills and transmission lines and promising to simply use more coal and gas over the next 2 decades until all of the reactors are ready. Voters will now have a very clear choice at the election between a renewables or a nuclear future.